And there were 400 union members of the Service Employees International Union having a Labor Day picnic. They were unarmed. They were assembled peacefully. They weren't even there for the convention, but they were all rounded up and taken to a detention holding area. And they were not allowed to contact their attorneys. They weren't even charged. But there's more. I wish there wasn't. Number 7, target key individuals. And this is where it hits a little bit closer to home. There is a fellow by the name of Fred Houghton, a gentleman who I happen to have met personally, as well as a fellow by the name of Charlie Puckett. These guys were militia leaders. They had not committed any felony. Yet in the case of Fred Houghton, he was accused of plotting a murder scheme to kill somebody that they felt that they couldn't trust in their little militia group. Except the Indiana State Police had made a recording, many recordings of conversations that he had with his alleged co-defendant. And they made these recordings at the behest of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. You know, these are the guys that like to grab people's guns. And what better guns to grab than the guns of these militia groups? They're dangerous. But the only problem is that they fabricated evidence. They took his conversations over a course of time and they spliced his words together to make up a completely fictitious conversation. The jury didn't get to hear this because it took him 3 years being preventively held, not in a jail, but in the Indiana Department of Corrections, until finally he was able to get some help with through a paralegal to file a writ of mandamus to get a court date. They wouldn't even give him a court date. You know, it's kind of like Guantanamo. You know, they purport that they can hold you forever. We'll charge you when we feel like it. But that's not what the Constitution says. We have a right to a speedy trial and to hear all the accusations made against us. And then, when you do come to arrest somebody, you better have a warrant. And this gentleman finally did get his day in court. And once the jury heard these very, very poorly cobbled together audio tape, they voted immediately to acquit. And I can't blame poor Fred for, as soon as he was able to attain his physical freedom, to get the hell out of Indiana and to disappear off the map. I knew the gentleman, and even I don't know where he's at now. Last I heard, he was up in an undisclosed location somewhere between Minnesota and Montana. And I say more power to him. I hope he's able to live out the remainder of his years, his golden years, unmolested. But sometimes you can't always succeed. You try to hide, you try to live an unmolested life out in the middle of nowhere, literally living off the land, but then they come after you anyway. Such was the case with the fellow by the name of Randy Weaver. And I talked earlier about entrapment. He was the victim of entrapment. He was coerced into sawing off the barrel of a shotgun, and he did, but he made sure that it was a legal length. And then the BATF goons said, you know what, that's not short enough. They cut off a little bit more. And with that, began the ball rolling so that they could send in federal agents to shoot his son in the back when he was trying to run away, to shoot his wife in the head when she was holding nothing more than an infant. And they tried to kill them all. Remember a little thing in Philadelphia many years ago called Project Move? Anybody remember that? Had a group of some unusual people. I'm not going to weigh in on whether they were good guys or bad guys, but they were certainly a nuisance. And the police said, well, we just need to get them out. You know what they did? They dropped a firebomb from a helicopter on the building, burned down an entire. In fact, I don't think was a city block. I think they burned down 3 city blocks. Well, they were planning on doing the same thing for Mr. Weaver and his family because they couldn't shoot them all because they ducked under cover and refused to go outside for many days. Even though his wife was already dead, Mr. Weaver had been shot. His friend Kevin Harris had been shot and was wounded actually quite badly. The rules of engagement, for those of you that aren't familiar with the Mr. Weaver situation, the FBI rules of engagement were changed. The FBI says that only when there's an immediate threat to life are they to use lethal force. The commander on the scene said, we're going to change these rules of engagement. If you can take a shot, you will take a shot, and you will shoot to kill. And this became the basis of a lawsuit that Mr. Weaver won, and in exchange for the life of his wife and his son and the incredible tragedy that his family, remaining family, was made to suffer. His remaining daughters, 3 of them, himself and his friend Kevin Harris. For that, he got the paltry sum of $3 million. The feds were very quick to settle. They didn't want this to drag on in media. Can't say that I blame them. You know, it's not good for the image, but you know, this is what happens. People get targeted. In the case of Charlie Puckett, who was the commander of the Kentucky State Militia, they had said that he was a felon in illegal possession of firearms, even though he had not committed a felony. When he was much younger, he committed a misdemeanor that some years after the 1968 Gun Control Act, which prohibits felons from owning firearms or even touching them. Later, that misdemeanor did get upgraded to a felony, but at the time when he was young and foolish and quite literally starving to death and just wanted to steal some food, he was breaking and entering incidentally. They said, oh, you know, we're just going to retroactively apply these laws. So in that way we can confiscate your firearms and put you on indefinite home detention. And again, it's just one of those things I have a little bit of a problem with. You know, the Constitution prohibits ex post facto laws. By extension, using basic rules of logic, if a law cannot be applied retroactively, that's why we have little things called grandfather clauses. You know, before the enactment of the law, you know, anyone that's covered is exempt after the fact. Well, same goes with legislation that, you know, gets passed. In the case of Mr. Puckett, they were retroactively applying provisions that didn't apply to him. Oh, well, we're just going to declare him a felon. And then somebody calls up his house. You know, and of course you have to understand, you know, back in the 90s and even up, you know, like through 2000, there's a lot of people that were very, you know, in the various militia groups, you know, that were existing at the time, concerned about, you know, federal agents coming in and doing harm to them. People had Waco fresh in their mind, and Randy Weaver, and so, and especially among members of the militia. So when somebody called up Mr. Puckett and said, there's a kill team on their way to your house right now, get out.